Hi everyone, welcome back to the Christmas in July collaboration with Crafty Michelle. This week's video is going to be the gel press technique, and this is a collab, so please make sure that you look in the description box below and get the links to everybody else's videos who'll be participating. Everyone's come up with some really great ideas last week, so I can't wait to see what they're going to make this week. So as I said, my video is going to be using the gel press. This isn't going to be a tutorial because Michelle's asked us to keep the video short, and that's so that you have time to watch everyone's video. And so I've wanted to honour that. So I'm going to show you each of the cards that I've made, and I've made loads. So I will probably give you a brief description of what I've done on each card, and then I will leave a link to a blog post below so you can get more details if you want them. I wanted to keep all of these cards super simple, so if you have never done gel press printing before, you could do it. If you're new to mixed media, you could do this. It's super easy. All you need is a gel press and a brayer and some paint or ink. So we'll come to that in a minute. Now I might have to turn the light off for this one because they are metallic. That's better. And I used gold and silver acrylic paint, very thin layer, and I just did half and half. It kind of mixed in the middle. I used some die cuts for a sentiment and the snowflakes, and it is such a simple card. This one next, and I tried to use a stencil. It didn't go so well. That's because I used a opaque paint, and I should have put the star layer on first and then put the opaque paint over the top, because you can't really see the stars through the paint very well. It's sort of semi-opaque actually, so you can see them there, but not as prominent as I want. So if you're using your gel press and you're using opaque paints, remember what you want to see on top of your image, you have to put down first and work backwards to the background, if that makes sense. I hope it does. The other tip I wanted to give for this card in particular was my gold paint didn't match my glitter cardstock, so I just coloured it in with my pro markers to change the tone of the gold in my snowflakes, and it worked really well. And then because I had some red paint left on my gel press, I didn't clean it, I just used gold straight on top, and then I got this random red texture. This die cut here, I wanted to have the same red that was in the paint, and whenever I do a painting or whenever I do some gel press printing, I always rub off my brayer or my brush on a spare piece of cardstock, so then when I want to die cut something, I've got an interesting colour or variation of colour to die cut it from. In this case it was just plain red, which was perfect because I need that for this card. This was a die cut that it's basically this die cut, so you can die cut the background and then overlay the sentiment on top, but instead of overlaying it, I cut into it. So to do that, I just take them together using a bit of washi tape on some white card and die cut it, and it gave me this. And I had to put in all the little pieces, but I thought it was really nice effect. Now these two cards were made using the leftovers from last week when I said to save the iron off heat embossing, and I used some silver metallic acrylic paint, and I just did one layer on top of the ironed off piece. Now this technique would work better with ink because the paint is slightly opaque. It covered up some of the embossing, but because some of the colour lifted with the embossing, you could still see the snowflake, so I thought I would go ahead and use it. And then I made another one with Believe, and that's really pretty. Now the next technique I wanted to try, it was just a plain background with die cut inlay. This one, it was fiddly around the edges because you have to keep all the kind of like inside pieces to piece them back together, so it took me quite a long time, but I really like it. I think it's really simple and I just stacked a scrap piece of paper and another sentiment in the middle just to finish the card off. And then if you save the paper snowflakes that you cut out of this background, you can use it on another project, which I have here. I just made a little tag and I used the snowflakes there and some offcuts from the edges of some of my other gel press prints, and I just stitched around the edge here with some silver thread and used some little gemmies in the middle. So that card was a die cut inlay, this is a die cut overlay, and I love all the colours on this. I used a purple and a pink, and they just kind of merged together with this great texture. And I've done another one with that same die. I don't know where I got this die from. I think I just found it on eBay before I realised they were all being made in China. But yeah, it's this one here. I'm sure you can find something like it. And I used the Good Cheer from the Paper Smooches set and just this little bit of glitter paper that I had left over. I just made a couple of banners for some interest. This was a mixture of Distress Oxide ink and paint. So I did a graduated lift for this turquoise paint and it kind of faded out, but it was quite white, and when I put it on the card it didn't look right against the white card base because I wanted to frame it with the white card base. So I added some cracked pistachio Distress Oxide ink with a makeup blending brush, and it gave this tonal effect. And then I stamped this Inkadinkado snowflake. This one here was some blues and green paint that were just melded together. I didn't do a big sort of fussy job about making sure the paint covered everything. This particular paint that I used didn't seem to want to lay flat on the gel plate. It kind of like resisted it, and I got this really cool texture which I could not recreate even if I wanted to. So I would suggest like playing with your paints and seeing, you know, do they like your gel plate or not, and if they don't, like, don't write them off, because you can get cool textures like this yeah, when you're not even meaning to. So it's kind of like a Bob Ross moment when that happens. I was inspired to do this by Ingrid Blackburn when she did her video on how to use up paper scraps, and she included her gel press printing scraps, and I was like, oh, that's genius. So I just picked some colours that went together and that were sort of Christmassy and put a snowflake on top, and I love it. This was one of the first cards I made, and this was just two greens, a lime green and a darker green that I sort of blended together. I die cut a snowflake pendant from the Spellbinders set, and this came from the Recollections set. It has a little bit of Stardust stickles on the sentiment just to make it stand out, and I coloured the background of behind this die cut with a pro marker, and I coloured the die cut with the same pro marker to add in the same green. I picked a green that was kind of in the middle of these two, probably leaning more towards this one. My original intention was to inlay all of these pieces, and I'd used press and seal to lift the die cut to make sure that I kept all the pieces, and the press and seal stuck to each other, and then I couldn't work out where all the pieces went, and because of the variation in colour it was a nightmare. So I gave that idea up and I just coloured it on the card base with pro marker really roughly. It's really ugly, but you can't tell when you put the die cut on top, so if at first it doesn't work out, just try something, you know, you got nothing to lose. And I still have the die cut left if I want to make another card with it. I'll show you that in a minute. And then I have another card that I made with scraps, and the other thing I wanted to share is this die cut. I have backed it in some what I would call roll-off paper. So if I show you my little tray. It's a bit full right now. So I just have this little star dish that I got probably in Home Bargains or the Pound Shop or something, and I make a bunch of sentiments at the beginning of a card making session for a season, and I dump them all in here, and then I just pick them out when I want. But I also keep all of my roll-off pieces like this or this, and this I made a really nice kind of like platinum colour that came off my brayer from doing that first card with the gold and the silver. I've got some extra backgrounds here that I've tried and not used, but these are super handy for backing your die cuts, just to add different interests. So this one's sort of like a green to blue, and on the card that I was showing I've used just a plain blue in the background, and it just helps it stand out, I think, especially when you haven't got a solid background behind it, because there's white spaces in between these pieces, and I just really enjoyed doing that. Now these are popped up for dimensions, so the individual strips are popped up and this is laying flat on top of that. I did that because I just wanted to add a bit of interest to the card because it was so simple, and to pop up my gel press prints I just backed it with some cardstock, because I do this on like printer paper, so if they don't come out too well I haven't wasted all my good cardstock. But you can print straight onto cardstock. I just didn't have any cheap cardstock around because I've used it all up. So that's how I got around that problem. And I just used a visual triangle here to draw your eye around the card so you look at all the different textures and stuff. And then I just wanted to share one card that I'd done with just Distress Oxide inks to prove to you that you don't have to have loads of paints. You can just use Distress Oxides, or you can even use dye inks. You just have to be careful with dye inks because they dry super fast, which is why I prefer sort of a pigment blend ink or a pigment ink for this technique. But I just did super simple 2 colours, and then I stamped this very, very old stamp. It's by Stampendous, it's called Blessed Night, and this is one of my favourites, and I just used a Stardust Jelly Roll pen to highlight the little halos and add some stars into the sky and that kind of thing. So those are all of the cards that I made, and I still have tons of pieces to make more cards if I want to. This technique is so fun because you get to create your own pattern paper, and if you are on a budget like me, or because you can't afford to, or you might be saving for a house like we are or whatever, creating your own background papers is really fun. And this is just scratching the surface. I mean, I did 1 or 2 with some stenciling, but you can layer, you can use bubble wrap to add texture, you can go all out. But for this first video talking about the gel press, I just wanted to do 1 layer, just paint, and show you how effective it can be. So I hope you really enjoyed the video and you found a card that you liked or a technique that you like. Don't forget that once you learn a basic technique, you can stack them. So you can stack your stamping with your gel press printing, or you can stack die cut inlay or die cut overlays, all sorts of things. So just think outside the box. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you go and check out the other ladies in the collaboration, and if you really like this video and you didn't see my video from last week and you love mixed media, please go and check it out. It is all about brushos and making brusho backgrounds for your Christmas cards. I hope that you will subscribe if you found something you liked today and give me a thumbs up. It's always appreciated. Thank you. Bye.